Health is a state of body. Wellness is a state of being. Jay Stanford. This episode is supported by Spa True Clinics. After a year like 2020, I don't just think, I know that each and every one of us deserve to look and feel our absolute best. And with 4 locations across British Columbia, Spa True Clinics makes it possible to do just that with fantastic monthly specials, VIP memberships, and gift cards for yourself or, moving into this holiday season, your loved ones. And you guys, this isn't just any old ad. I have been telling people, as well as gifting my own family members with Spa True services since before they became a supporter of ours here at the podcast. So believe me when I say, if you are going to book a session and you want company, DM me on my gram, because I never say no to a day at Spa True. That's www.spatru.com. Moving into another week, we have for you another fantastic episode. Welcome back to the podcast. Your host, Ryan, here. Now, as many of you may have heard me say or speak in the past, I am a practicing student of a bunch of really huge words that don't likely hold any meaning whatsoever for you yet. Words like neuroenergetic kinesiology, LEAP, SIPS, applied physiology, touch for health, Barry's body management, neurocardiology, kinesiology, all of which are commonly referred to as modalities and can be summed up and are often referred to around the world as specialized kinesiology, or maybe you've heard it referred to as brain integration or bioenergetic wellness. Either way, as part of the podcast, part of focusing forward and providing you with all of the actionable steps that don't just rock my world, but keep me in balance in body, mind, and spirit, I reached out to my teachers, my mentors from all around the globe, and they have all agreed to join us here on the podcast at some point. And today we have with us Denise Cambriotti, the president of Muscle Tuners, Inc. What is Muscle Tuners, you're wondering? Don't worry, we're going to cover all of that in the episode up ahead. Your only job right now is to remember that if this episode resonates with you, head over to my Instagram page and click on the link in my bio to access Muscle Tuners Inc. Super Christmas giveaway. And you guys, it is so juicy, so hot, 12 gifts for free just for you. I already signed up for it myself, so I cannot wait, and I hope to see you guys there. One more tiny little PSA before our friends Fellow Hollow take us into this episode. You guys, Fellow Hollow has a new album, Violet Paper Wings, dropping December the 4th, and it is everything that you could possibly ask for in an album, especially an album right before Christmas. I mean, it is dreamy and inspiring, thoughtful, hopeful, and you can pre-order, pre-save this album so that you don't forget or miss out, okay? So head to your favorite streaming platform, type in Fellow Hollow, Violet Paper Wings, because that is dropping December 4th, and you do not want to miss out. And now, Denise Cambriotti. Welcome to the podcast, Denise.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Rianne, and giving me a platform to talk about healing and wellness, because I'm a little bit passionate about that.
Well, yes. For those of you who don't know, Denise and I met actually because she was a practitioner that I was seeing to help me through my own struggles with healing and PTSD, just all the things that cause confusion and trouble and chaos in the body. So that is how we met. I showed up on her door and I begged her, please help me. Denise, can you just tell us, let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into bioenergetics? When did this passion start for you, the passion towards healing? And then I really want to get into why you created Muscle Tuners.
Beautiful. I clearly remember the moment. And I had been working in northern Alberta in the oil field, and not as an oil field worker, but as admin support in a building in the middle of nowhere. And they would run around in the morning at some god awful hour, like 6 a.m., and pick us all up and carpool us in a van to get to work. So for about an hour, I would crunch up in the van and try and catch an extra, 45 minutes shut eye or whatever. And after a while, my body revolted, and I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be taking Tylenol or some type of pain reliever every single day. That doesn't seem like a very good idea, because I had headaches every single day. And it got to the point where, it's just when you don't know, you just do. And it's like, well, it's a pain reliever. And I was popping these things. When I started popping about 3 of them a day, every day for months on end, the lights went on and I went, you know what? I think maybe my neck is bothering me. Sleeping crunched up in the van, I always have this crick in my neck. And there's this guy. People say he does really unusual stuff, and he's a chiropractor. And I had heard all kinds of stories about chiropractors and to worry about them. And I have to say, in my experience, there are some really awesome people out there, and there are some that are a lot less awesome. So if you don't run across a really great one, if that's in your path, just keep looking, because there are really good ones out there.
Yes.
And there are some that are just, they don't operate and they don't match what I need or want. Mm-hmm. So I go see this fellow, and he had his front office staff do this thing with me. And she had me stand up, and she was pushing on arms and legs and checking my finger strength. And it was the most unusual experience. And I'm going, oh gosh. And I'm talking inside my head, my body, I was like, you're a traitor. Come on, you can be strong. And she wasn't pushing hard. She was just putting my arm in a certain position and saying, now hold here as I push this way or that way. And sometimes my arm would lock and sometimes it wouldn't. And I didn't know what was going on. And she recorded things on a form. And then I went to see the chiropractor, and he asked me some questions, and he said, So he says, your recurring headaches, your recurring bladder infections, and I do not recall what the third thing was. I think it was I was constipated. He says, they're all connected. And I thought, you are crazy. This is what people around town are saying about you, because how can something in your head and your bladder and your guts be connected?
Right.
Anyways, he laid me on his table there. You know how chiropractors have that special table that they have you lay on? Mm-hmm. And he tested those muscles that weren't locking when his assistant did them. And then he would do something and they would lock. And he flips me over on my tummy and he cracked one area of my back. And he says, that's all you need. He says, they're all connected. And I'm going, you're crazy. But what I remember, like, the most amazing thing is when he retested all the unlocked muscles, they all locked. He could have swung like a monkey off of my arm.
Wow.
I was strong like bull. It was so amazing. And I literally had the moment where I went, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
Oh, that's so cool.
I was like 26. I said, like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. And I didn't know how I was going to make that happen, because I was living up in northern Alberta. There were no schools to learn this at. And I was just in the process of starting a family. And I didn't see how I was going to toss all that and go somewhere to the States to learn what he had learned. And he treated myself and my family for years. And I totally believe the successful outcome of my pregnancy with twins was highly complicated. and they didn't believe the twins would be born alive. They didn't think I'd carry satisfactorily, or they'd be, really messed up when they were born. And I totally attribute prayers from the family and the community, but his care. Because I'd come in and say, the doctor's saying this now, and go, and he'd do something, and I'd leave feeling better.
Wow.
And I never developed lymphedema, and I could have had so many problems. So I really credit him for, no matter what I threw at him, I'd say, okay, next time you see my husband, can you work on his snoring, please? 'Cause that's tiring me out. And I never forgot, and this is the seed of where Muscle Tuners comes from, is I'd been going to the gym after the kids were, about 18 months old, and I was suggested to get out of the house and do something for stress management. So I joined a gym, and all my exercises were coming along beautifully, except for sit-ups or crunches.
Oh.
I could not do more than 20 crunches without wanting to throw up. So I mentioned it to one, because he was the kind of go-to guy, and whatever was bothering me. I never had another recurring bladder infection, by the way, after that one treatment. My headaches went away. I was pooping daily, and I was running around town like a holy roller. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was just like, I've seen the light. Do you know how good it feels to poop every day? I had energy. I had vitality. I felt well. And so I just thought, this guy's a wizard. So I would tell him, hey, I'm at the gym, and I can't do more sit-ups for 3 or 4 months now. I can't do more than 20 sit-ups is what I went in for. And all my other exercises, I'm adding a little bit more weight, being responsible, but I'm moving ahead. They're getting easier, but not the sit-ups. And he did something, and I don't know what, to this day, I don't know what he did. But the next time I went to the gym, I got bored when I hit 100 sit-ups.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And so it really was the grain of Muscle Tuners, because a lot of people are making a lot of effort. So they're going to the gym, or they have a rehab program because they've been injured and they're going to see a physiotherapist, or they're going to massage for something. And the problem just doesn't get better. And this is our core message. Switch on the muscles first. Right. Get the body-brain message running. Then whatever you're going to do, whatever your therapy, whatever your fitness exercise is going to be, you're going to be more efficient.
Yeah. That's, oh my goodness. I want to go see the guy that you went and saw up there now all of a sudden. So I'm like, I can't do more than like 5 sit-ups to save my life.
Well, turns out I'm a little closer than Northern Alberta.
Which is exactly why I come to see you. Oh, that's such an exciting way to get going on this. So you went and saw him. You had all these incredible successes for your own body, your vitality, your pregnancy, your family's feeling great. So what jump-started you down this road then? I mean, because you were in Alberta, but now you're in BC. So
oh yeah, right. So I'm just about in tears. The last appointment, I'm moving to the Lower Mainland. And he's saying, well, okay, I know a doctor, you could go see, and he does similar stuff than me. He's even better than me. And I'm going, nobody could be better than you. And he said, you could do this is what I'm into right now. And he gave me some hints of some other energetic healing therapies out there. But he never mentioned the words touch for health to me.
Okay.
But one day, this is what kickstarted it. I'm in the library because that's my happy place. And I happened to go by the bulletin board, and these words grabbed me. It says, learn muscle testing.
Oh.
And that's back when you could post a notice, in a public space, and you were going to earn money from teaching a course. Don't let you do that anymore. And I went, that's so fantastic. So I got myself registered to this muscle testing class, and it turned out to be Touch for Health. And that just changed everything for me, absolutely everything. Once I understood that, another accident happened. I'm walking in the downtown Vancouver library when they first opened that great big one that looks like the Colosseum in Rome.
Oh, yeah.
Round, that big round building on Robson, between Robson and Georgia in Vancouver. And I'm walking along, and all of a sudden I saw a book. It literally practically jumped off the shelf at me. It said, Cure Your Own Allergies in Minutes. And I opened up the book because I was suffering from a few allergies and I knew I was doing something. And I was like, oh, he's talking about these same points that I learned about in Touch for Health. And it wasn't Touch for Health. And that book's not in print any longer. But I took that book and it took me a month to digest it because it was challenging to understand what the heck he was talking about. But I did it, and it totally changed the health of my kids. My kids had severe allergies, and we couldn't figure out what they were allergic to. And not only could we figure out the allergies and do our best to take those things out of their diet, this book suggested how you could use acupressure to harmonize the energy field so that you wouldn't have a reaction anymore. So that was life-changing as well. And then I went to see a friend who was struggling. She had to think really hard about moving from this chair over here to that chair over there. She was so weak. And I did a little bit of work with her, and she rebounded. And there was a lady at the school, and I found out she'd been in for bowel resectioning surgery. And I just went, oh, poor Chris. I'll go visit her at the hospital. And I did one little energy technique, and the nurse came in, and she'd been in there after surgery. I think it was 4 days post-op. She was still fevering. And after I'd done some work, and the nurse was in there half an hour later, she went, your fever broke. The woman looked at me. She said, whatever you're doing, I'm going to come see you when I come out of the hospital. I want more of that. And I just knew the very basics. And I tell that. So, and she came, and I only found one muscle unlock of 14 that I was trained in at the time. And I thought I was a total failure. And I was like, I'm so sorry to put you through the stress of showing up here and getting this done, because I didn't do anything. And 3 days later, she strides across the parking lot at the elementary school where we had our kids. And she came face to face and nose to nose at me and made quite the commotion and said, what did you do? And so all the other moms are going, what did you do, Mrs. Cambiotti? We want to hear this. What did you do? And of course, my first thought was I had done something wrong. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know, I just balanced latissimus dorsi muscle. It's connected to the spleen meridian. And that's the only thing your body showed me. And it's like, I'm sorry, what's the matter? And she says, what's the matter? And she says, I went home and slept. And I woke up the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I carried on my day. I only need a rest in the afternoon when the kids blow in after school and they're all going off on all their other activities after school. And I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm going, well, what's up with that? She says, before I saw you, I was sleeping 16 hours a day. And she says, the hours I was awake, I was good for nothing. So what did you do? And that's where I learned some really valuable lessons that I want to share with your learners is whatever you have to share, just do your best. Mm-hmm. And do it with love and care for humanity. And you never know what might happen.
No, that's exactly right. You never know, even if you're just thinking that you're making a small change or effort or none at all, it's incredible how when you speak to one another, the lessons that people pick up from you or, the information that they take away that can somehow better their own life. And, I think that's really exciting. So what happened then? Like, where did you go from that?
Oh, then it became very painful.
The lessons got harder.
Well, you see, life is not a straight line. So I was like, I'm ready to take level 2 Touch for Health now. Mm. And I registered with my instructor, and she canceled the class 3 times because whatever reason, she couldn't get it together to make it happen. And I never learned the reasons. And finally I thought, wow, there's a phone number at the bottom of this handout. Why don't I call this number? And it was the association's office. And I went, I'm so ready to take Touch for Health level 2. I love my first instructor, but it's just, I've been waiting literally now 3 years to get into my level 2 class. And I am ready like right now because miracles, I'm starting to use the stuff finally. And I'm getting miracles happening. And I want to carry on. Like if I can do that with level 1, what can I do with level 2?
Right.
So they hooked me up with another instructor. And I carried on from there to level 2, 3, and 4. And when I was in level 3, I was invited to an exchange where people practice with each other. And this woman was a different modality than Touch for Health. And she invited people she knew. And we all paired up, and you give what we call a balance, and you receive a balance. So you just exchange whatever your modality is. And everybody in the room, again, had to turn around and see what Mrs. Denise Cambriotti was doing. Because my partner was moaning and groaning and emoting and making really bizarre noises. So I just carried on and pretended like everything was normal. And at the end of it, I said, so what was all that about? And she's going, I need to know who your teacher is. And I'm going, well, it's so-and-so. And she says, what are you doing? I says, I'm doing Touch for Health. Mm-hmm. She says, well, I've learned Touch for Health too, but I don't do that. And I'm going, well, then I don't think you're doing Touch for Health. Like, you don't look like you're doing Touch for Health. You don't sound like you're doing Touch for Health. And she says, oh, that's when I was in California and I was at some institute or whatever. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was totally about experiential, let it out. And so sounds. And, I'm sure if she'd had one of those rubber hammers, she would have been beating on something. And I'm going, no, that's not what we do here. Mm-hmm. And she says, I need to connect with your instructor. And so she took her level 2 and level 3. And I think her level 1, 2, and 3. And then we met at level 4 together. And that's when life got super interesting because she was on fire and passionate. And she was connecting to instructors like Richard Utt of Applied Physiology in Tucson, Arizona, who's since passed on. And she invited him to come teach in Canada. And she was passionate. She had to learn the applied physiology system. And she started hosting and sponsoring instructors. And she would drag me along, kicking and screaming. And she says, no, you got a gift for this. You have to be here. And I'm going, but I don't have the money. I don't want it. I got kids in school and I got to have somebody pick them up because my husband travels. And so we overcome all the challenges. And I showed up at these courses and I took to it like a duck to water. This feeds my soul.
Yeah.
And so that's more about the path. And then I just kept going. And then she started having more kids. And so she's been on the sidelines for a while, but I just kept going. And I started synthesizing. Every time I work with another practitioner, they say, you do things differently. And it's because I allow myself to synthesize and ask the client's body to say, what next, what next, what next? And then I met Heather Phillips, and together we decided we needed to jumpstart this and get it in the hands of more people. And that, it just wasn't being marketed well. And people went, Touch for Health, is that sort of like therapeutic touch? Or is it like this or that? Or is that about that tapping thing? And they'd go on. They had no concept of what Touch for Health was. So we decided we'd go out there and trademark the term muscle tuner. And now we're training people to be muscle tuner specialists. And it is the physical aspect with just a sprinkling of emotional processing without being overt about it. Mm-hmm. Helps to drain the emotional stress out of muscles and tendons and ligaments and all kinds of other neat stuff. And it's simple. And that is what we do really well. We train people to do that, and we feed their hunger to learn more.
I think to me, that's so exciting. I love how simple you're able to make it because, even when you're explaining it, it's so much more simple. I know when I get asked questions, I really struggle because like yourself, I've taken so many different courses and modalities but they all intermingle because everything is complementary to one another, but when you have to go back and I try to explain it, I get really stuck on it because I'm like, well, but I love that like with muscle tuners, is like you said, you're tuning the muscles, and that's so easy to explain to somebody. And then can you tell us more? Because I'm big on emotion, and then how emotion relates to muscles. Can you explain more about that?
Okay, I'm just going to back up one step.
Yeah, do it.
So, Dr. George Goodhart is a chiropractor from Detroit, Michigan, back in the 60s, who observed a series of happy accidents. And at some point, he correlated that muscles are connected to organs and glands via the acupuncture meridian system.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really big news, with acupuncture coming to the United States, because I think it was Ralph Nader or one of those guys in the whole entourage went touring around China, and somebody had some major surgery done with no anesthetic, because they don't do that over there. They just pop some needles in the guy and said, okay, here we go. And it's surgery. It was totally freaking everybody out. And he was like, I don't feel any pain. So it was very interesting. And so acupuncture, the idea of it came to North America, and Dr. Goodhart was hearing about it, and he started correlating information there and going, wow. And he started observing happy interconnectedness between muscles and meridians. And so this is my point, is whatever you do to improve the function of a muscle, you're improving general wellness, because the muscle is connected to an organ, one or the other of them, through this system called the meridian system. And that is really, really key. And now a lot of people will think about how emotions affect you. So think about being nervous and you have butterflies in your stomach, or you're green with envy, or, and that relates to liver and bile. And indeed, the emotions the Chinese had seen and studied or observed, they're saying between 3,500 and 5,000 years ago. It was a while back. I don't want to argue with them, split the difference. I don't care. But a long time ago, the Chinese people were observing patterns, and they were noticing that emotions affected organs in a different way, and how grief will hit the lungs. So a lot of people, dime store, what do they call it? Psychology, pop psychology might say, well, if you've got asthma, maybe there's unresolved grief. But the thing is there's a seed of truth in that. And when your stomach's upset, you're not processing something emotionally, and how you're told, sit down and eat. Don't eat on the run. It's not good for your digestion system. And there's these different types of emotions are attributed to, something's got stuck in your craw, or you need to vent your spleen, and all those expressions, they come from somewhere. So that's a little bit about how emotions can be managed by managing what we do in muscle tuners. And our claim to fame is that Heather asked me a really important question one day. And I said, Heather, there are systems I've studied that have release points that help release emotions out of muscles. And I would really like to have that in our program, but for different reasons, we chose not to do that. And I still wanted a technique like that, branded as a muscle tuner technique. And she said, well, you and I are really smart. We can just practice on a whole bunch of people and figure this out. And she says, what is it that technique is doing? So I answered her question, and we developed a technique using some very basic tools. And gosh darn, it worked. And not only that, it would improve the function, or some people would call it the strength of a muscle. But because I saw so many clients, and I like to feel and wait for pulses. So not everybody feels pulses. Lots of people do. They're like the pulse at your wrist. You count your heartbeat, except these pulses are can be in different spots. And I would wait for pulses, and sometimes they would take a long time. And I'd be watching the clock, and son of a gun, somewhere between 25 seconds to 30 seconds, sometimes the pulse would come on. And sometimes it would be right in between 55 seconds and a minute. And then it would be like at a minute 15, a minute 30, a minute 45, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. And I started thinking to myself, well, this is starting to remind me of another program I've taken. And I chatted with the developer of that program, and I said, so what do you think is up with this? And then I talked to Dr. Krebs. You and I know Dr. Krebs.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, okay, so what's up with this? Because this connects to biokinesiology research. It connects to this. And he says, well, you're going to correlate it using the SIPS system.
Yes.
And I know that you're trained in stress indicator point system too. And I went, perfect. Too many trees. I can't see the forest. So I started, before doing this correction we invented, I would ask the body, is the problem at the muscle level, the tendon level, the ligament level, the fascial level, at the nervous system level, the lymphatic or vascular level? And the body would say, it's here, through an independent system called SIPS. And then I would do our correction, and I would wait, and I would note when the pulses came on, and they correlated to the research of the Biokinesiology Institute. So I was very, very excited to do that consistently. And we're definitely getting some interesting results. And this correction also helps strain emotional stress. So not only the electrical stress, like when you've overdone and you've strained a muscle and you've blown a fuse, so to speak, more than that, definitely more than that. So I don't know, I kind of went off into the reeds a little bit, but I hope I refocused and answered your question.
Oh, you did all of the above. I love it. Go into the reads, because like I said, I'm here learning today, just like everybody else listening. So I'm like, just keep talking. Don't stop.
Well, what I can say too is this one correction also balances muscles that are called underfacilitated, which means we find them in an unlocked state. You're just person off the street, you'll say, why is my muscle unlocking? Or how I was with my chiropractor is like, shame on me, my muscle should be stronger. Why isn't it, why am I so weak? Mm-hmm. And it's not about that. It's not about muscle strength at all. It's about how is your nervous system doing communicating to that particular muscle and to that organ. And so not only does it work with those under energy aspects, but a really tricky aspect is there are not many modalities in my world that I'm aware of that work with over energy. And they certainly don't do it without you taking a 4 to 16 day program.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And our humble little technique fixes that. And you learn it in our foundations class. It's just part of what we offer.
Can you explain to people listening here today the difference between over energy and under energy muscles?
Oh, yeah. Well, here's what the public wants to hear. An over energized muscle is going to be a painful muscle. There's literally, I talked about meridians and acupuncture theory a minute ago. So these meridians have pathways that flow through your body. And if you have a blockage that blocks the energy of a meridian, you get pressure building up behind it. And pressure means pain. And depending on where the blockage is, it causes the muscle to jam up. And it really is not a happy customer. And the other thing is I'll see bodybuilders, and they're amazed that I find unlocked muscles on them because they're stuck in this weak versus strong mentality. And it's not the muscle strength. It's how is the nervous system doing? So this is where we can help prevent injuries. Because if you're strong enough to lift a bag of potatoes, you're using, say, 8 muscles to do that, just pulling a number out of the thin air. If 2 of those muscles aren't working properly, the other 6 have to work harder. And if the 2 continually don't show up to work, eventually the remaining ones, they get cranky and they shut down. And now you're trying to do the job of lifting a great big bag of potatoes, or you're lifting the edge of the couch because you've got a vacuum under it. And all of a sudden you can't do it anymore, and you might injure yourself. And I really have to go off again on another track. So, okay, over-energized. Let me finish that. Over-energized muscles are muscles that have been essentially switched off, but they're not switched off like the other kind, but they act the same way. You basically can't depend on them. They really don't show up for work. And the over-energized ones usually are involved with painful situations. So did I answer that piece? And then I really want to talk about one other really important research study.
Yeah, no. So I just want to, just to be clear. So like what I took away from that, like I know what I know, but what I took away from that is that when we think of over energy muscles, to me, that's a muscle that went into overdrive to correct the unbalanced ones. And then it shut down because it was working too hard. So it shut down, and that's one that causes pain. And an under energy muscle is a muscle that is checked out and it's just offline and it's not working. And that's a weaker muscle. Is that what I took away? Is that what you were saying?
It's really close.
Okay.
A lot. Okay. So when you do muscle monitoring, sometimes you'll find the unlocked muscle, and that unlocked muscle can be just like you said, checked out because it just something annoyed it one day. But it can equally be a muscle that had previously been over-energized and gave up.
Okay.
So then an over-facilitated muscle is the one that is trying to do the work of the whole team, and it hurts.
I remember, I think it was in Touch for Health, and I could be wrong in this, where I heard the term bully muscle.
That's a different situation.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. I just wanted to make, because like I got so many different references in my head. I just wanted to make sure that, okay, so that's a whole other topic. We're not going to get into that right now.
No, we're not. But it's really important that people learn that you can have bully muscles. And this is another prize, that we teach how to deal with those bully muscles and muscle tuners, that our colleagues in Touch for Health, even those who teach Touch for Health and have to teach what's called the reactive muscle technique, they say, I'm finally able to use the technique because you make it so much easier.
Nice.
And the reason you want to use the reactive muscle reset that we teach is because when you think you fixed a problem and it comes back, you haven't really fixed it. You're just chipping away and polishing things up, but not really taking care of the structure underneath. And that's where you have bully muscles that are yelling at other muscles, and you need to straighten out that communication pathway. And when you get good at this, it literally takes from 30 seconds to maybe a minute to figure out what's going on and fix it.
Okay.
So when people have a chronic condition and it just, no matter what they do and it keeps coming back, they really need this done. Okay, so yeah, it seems complex, and yet we lay it out step by step and make it simple and I actually talked to a physiotherapist yesterday, and I said, I absolutely refuse to talk it up and make it sound complicated just so we could charge more money or do whatever. It's not more complicated. In fact, we want more people to use it, so we keep it as simple as possible. So you don't have to be a physiotherapist to take our training. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have a background in massage therapy or anything else. You just have to be like any kind of a body worker, a reflexologist who doesn't really know, how the nervous system does talking to muscles. They just know that there's these pathways and they activate them by rubbing reflexes. They're just equally wonderful candidates. In fact, the less you know, the better you do. Because you don't get your old learning tangled up. We do keep it simple. And what I do want to make absolutely sure is I want to give a shout out to Heather Phillips, because at some point in her university program, she wanted to do a study on Touch for Health, and that Touch for Health strengthens muscles. And this is the language they used to use way back when. And now we know there's a little bit more technical, but it looks like, whoa, it strengthens muscles. And her advisor steadfastly said, no, go pick another subject. And Heather went off and did something for a year or two and came back. And her advisor was like, no, pick a different subject. At least that's what I think I remember of that conversation. And so at one point, Heather says, let me show you something. And they were standing by the side of a pool, and she did, tiny little demonstration. And her advisor says, you must do this. Okay, I'm approving your thesis. And this is what it is. It's about some people just need to have the experience and go, what the heck just happened in front of my eyes?
Yeah.
And it's literally instantaneous, and people feel it and they know there's been a change. So it's very exciting. So she did her study, and she had expensive, university equipment like the Cybex machine that measures torque strength across joints. And they decided they were going to check a group of volunteers. Well, they checked a whole bunch of people, and half of them were split up, right? And she gave half of them a Touch for Health balance, but everybody had their hamstrings and their quadriceps strength tested with the Cybex machine. So they all showed up. They all got their the test measurement done on those two muscles. And then she did a Touch for Health balance on half of them and remeasured what was going on with the quadriceps and the hamstrings. And she was really disappointed because she disproved her thesis.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the thesis was that Touch for Health, muscle balancing or whatever, Touch for Health, strengthens muscles.
Right.
What she found out is the hamstring muscles and the quadricep muscles, something very interesting happened. I believe it was the quadriceps muscles strengthened and the hamstrings got less strong.
Oh, interesting.
So she looked at the data and she realized that previously the torque ratio was 3-1, which is not good to have 3 times the force on one side of a joint compared to the other, right?
Right.
So after Touch for Health, which has always been called, we do muscle balancing, but there was no research study on this until Heather did hers. And she found out, guess what? We are balancing muscles. Opposing muscles go into a 1-to-1 ratio to each other. So it makes for a much healthier knee joint.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So you're not pulling so hard on one side, because then that's going to lead to a bunch of knee injuries. It's really important to people in sports. It's really important to people who have to get up and down off the floor, take care of their kids, or, whatever it is they do for their job.
Yeah.
And it's really important for seniors. And in fact, I took in one of my Touch for Health classes, I remember them saying, guess what? They used to think you would get arthritis and then your muscles would weaken. And now what they're doing with the studies is they're noticing that the muscle, especially the quadriceps muscle, it weakens and it doesn't hold the patella or the kneecap in place properly. So then the kneecap starts swirling around a little bit and it causes irritation underneath the kneecap. And voila, what is arthritis? It's inflammation of a joint. Well, sure, if your kneecap is sliding around because the muscles aren't holding it where it's supposed to be,
Right.
You're going to get irritation, you're going to get inflammation, and voila, you now have arthritis. So which came first? And what can you actually take charge of yourself and manage?
I first learned about, similar modalities to muscle tuners because I was training horses. And what's really interesting, and I'm using this story to bring us into the next part of the conversation, is that I had no idea that I had CPTSD, PTSD. I had no idea that my body was falling apart. I mean, you talk about how you were taking Advil, or Tylenol or whatever it was for your neck pain. I was popping Advil and Skittles for breakfast and eating them all day like they were chiclets. Like there was just no end. It was like my whole body was inflamed and in pain 24/7. And it was only through, and I swear this, it was only because of a modality that was being used. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it at depth. Just when I got on the table, this person did the muscle testing, moved some organs around and made me feel better, And so coming back to that, in what ways, like I said, because I was an athlete, I was a horse trainer, I was constantly taking hits, I was constantly pulling my body out of alignment. How does muscle tuner specifically address athletic injuries? And here's why I'm asking that. my drive in athletics was because of my PTSD. It gave me something to hang on to. It gave me something, something to focus on and put me into a mental state where I wasn't dealing with, my emotional stress, like what I like to call moving meditation. And so I focused my entire being on being excellent at one athletic endeavor. How does muscle tuners, or how would muscle tuners integrate with helping somebody to realign their body so that it's not as in much pain, or so that they can start to allow other things to enter into their perception? Does that make sense, what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I'm sure the audience is hanging on your every word and wants to hear the answer. And this is the long and short of it. First of all, I heard you allude to treatment that is a little bit, I need to be careful. We don't treat injuries because we're not medical professionals.
Right. Sorry. I always say energy sessions personally.
Everybody says it, and they mean it very innocuously. So I just want to go on record because I don't want any lawyers getting mad at me. I'll just say, come over here and let me fix something for you. You won't be mad at me for very long. So what we do is, seriously, we don't treat injury. We don't address an injury really any differently than any other session. And when we train physiotherapists, they may want to focus on a quadrant, like a shoulder, a hip, a knee, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And implement muscle tuning techniques into what they're already doing. We urge everybody, we'll say, yeah, you'll get results, but you'll get more durable results if you activate and do our system that basically works from head to toe. And the reason is because we're so complex, and your toe bone's connected to your foot bone's connected to your ankle bone, is connected to your knee bone, and so on and so forth.
And it's also connected to your uterus, for those of you out there who didn't know that.
The toe bone can be, I can't tell you how many times I get neck pain gone by working with something in the foot, and people are amazed. And I had one fellow with somebody's dad, and she said, do you think you can help my dad? And I went, I don't know, send him over. And she was a good customer, and her dad came over, and he had this problem with his knee. And I asked the body what to do first, next, and next. And this is before my muscle tuner career. And I literally did not touch his knee in any manner he could discern. So yeah, I was working with muscle tests and things that affected the knee, but I never actually touched his knee. And so he got up off the table, and he was really grumpy. And he's like, yeah, you weren't listening to me. You didn't even do anything for my knee. I can't believe it. Right. So, I'm going, okay, look, you're not satisfied. No charge. I get it. I know. I understand your frustration. It's not how I work. And no charge. It's fine. And so he had gone up one side of me and down the other. And 3 hours later, he phoned me back and says, I don't know what you did, but I'm walking better. So the beautiful intercomplexity of the body is that when you go through the sequences, that when we train you to go from head to foot and go back up to the head and go down to the foot, so we have 2 sequences, you get way more durable results, because a lot of times the problem is not where the trouble is. Mm-hmm. So the trouble is the sore knee, for example, but that's not necessarily where the problem is the knee is sore because somebody somewhere is not carrying a share of the load. Mm-hmm. And so the knee had to compensate, or muscles around there. And eventually it just starts to, I'm sure you've been at work sometimes where somebody's outside in the parking lot on their phone for an extra half hour, and you're at work and they come late and they leave early and they run around like a social butterfly and chat with everybody in the office and don't get any work done, or at the factory or wherever you're at. And so the remaining people doing the work, they get cranky, and that happens with your muscles. So by not focusing on a specific injury, but working with a system, we're rebooting the energy circuits and the communication so that everything works in cooperation with everything else. And it takes the pressure off the injured area, and it restores the flow of energy, and the healing ability can go into that area. And you stop compensating so much. Everything comes back online, and now you're not compensating anymore. And that is the message we really like to get out, is tune up muscles first, switch them on first, and then other therapies work. And we like to go holistically.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I can't say enough good things. I mean, I think everybody, who's listening in knows that I'm just an absolute advocate, diehard fan. I've had nothing but miracle after miracle in my own life as a result of bioenergetics and, yourself muscle tuners. Every practitioner that I've come into contact with has enhanced my own life. And so I can't stress enough to people that I think it's so exciting to have someone like you come on, because my big thing is like, it's great to go see a practitioner if, like you're older and you don't have time and you just need some outside help. But what I think is really cool is that with muscle tuners, with yourself, young people can step in and they can actually become advocates for their own health and their own bodies and their own energy by coming in and taking a course. I mean, that's just my opinion. They could come in, they could take your course, and they could start to work on themselves and to understand themselves at a deeper level. And I think the more you understand yourself at a deeper level, the more you're actually able to help the world around you. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, age has nothing to do with it. There are instructors of other modalities and bioenergetics coming in at age 16 and now. And many of the leaders in our field, my field, they didn't get started until they were in their 50s.
Sorry, I should rephrase that. It's not age, responsibility. I know people that, as we age, as we grow older, many people have so many responsibilities that they feel that they can't take time out of that to do something else. So that was my poor choice in words. My apologies, everybody.
Well, it's great to clarify for sure. And so I have two answers for you. And the great thing about the Muscle Tuner Specialist program is that not only do you learn to work with other people, but we show you how to work and help yourself and do your own self-care as much as possible so that you can show up in the world in the best state you can be without having to run out and take sessions with somebody else. Not saying anything against that. I love going for sessions with other people. I encourage people to do whatever it takes to get them grounded and rebalanced mentally, physically, and spiritually. Keep doing that. And in the meantime, if you haven't got an hour to jump in a car and drive somewhere and spend an hour to be with somebody, there's a lot you can do for your self-care. And we teach that in the Muscle Tuner Specialist program to some degree. And Heather Phillips, my business partner, is really, really keen on something she calls the Energy Boost Self-Care Program, because she came up at age 20. She needed back surgery, and she came out of it, and it was a mess. They wanted to go back in and do exploratory surgery, and she was in pain, and things weren't working well. And she discovered a bioenergetic modality. And in fact, again, maybe people everywhere are going to go, I need to find out about this Touch for Health. But she also got exposed to Touch for Health after she got exposed to manual muscle testing through a chiropractor's office, so much like me. And she began teaching nurses. And so she started managing her own self, her own wellness, her own, when pain would pop up for whatever reason. And so she's created Win the Pain Game is how she's currently marketing it. So winthepaingame.com. And she is leading people right now. She's halfway through her first 6-week offering where people learn techniques, and then they can join a group and talk about it and ask more questions about it. And she explains things in a little bit more depth. And it's because of her passion that she got better without needing to go back for surgery. And she also, when she took her training many years before mine to become an instructor, it was very much a self-care model. And we applaud that. We give techniques to our clients all the time to say, here, in between sessions, go do this for yourself to, get yourself through any humps that might show up before the next, or do this, or before you prepare for an event, if you're an athlete, do this and do that. So we're very, very keen on, we just give tons of information away because when you're taking care of yourself, you're able to take care of others. And so the whole world is ultimately, we want to make the world a better place.
No, I love your answer. That's perfect. So I want to get more into muscle tuners. Let's get a little bit deeper if you have the time, if you're not,
I'm good to go. Woohoo! Somebody wants to listen to me on my soapbox.
Hey man, I am all ears. So can you tell us, so like, I know with, and again, like not to compare it because this is not a comparison, but my introduction into bioenergetics, which was called, for those of you that are listening that are not in Canada, it's called different places in different parts of the world. I do know that. Like it's, I think in Australia, they still call it specialized kinesiology or neuroenergetic kinesiology. I think down in Brazil, there's a neurocardiology kinesiology. Like
there are many offshoots with different specializations.
Thank you. Yes, perfect. So when I first got my go, because I wanted to learn more, I took the Touch for Health course the same as you, because that was my only introduction into it. And there was 4 modules that I had to get through in order to have my Touch for Health. So how does, and again, this is not in comparison, it's just the only way I know how to process it. With muscle tuners, is it similar in the sense of there's certain levels that you go through? Like, how is that taught?
So first of all, we're structured in that Heather and I both came out of learning muscle testing from chiropractors.
Okay.
So way back when, the applied kinesiology chiropractors were the guys who were bringing in all this muscle testing stuff and reflex activation and all this neat stuff that they were doing. And so specialized kinesiology grew out of that. And Touch for Health is one of the original, it was the foundation modality for lay people to learn. And we are firmly standing on the shoulders of all of that. And we have a copyright use agreement with Matthew Thie, who's the trademark owner of Touch for Health. And we, as long as we are attributing where these techniques are coming from, and we don't say we've invented how to rub a neurolymphatic reflex and a neurovascular reflex or how to do this, that, or the other thing, we totally say this is coming out of the research of applied kinesiology chiropractors. Touch for Health teaches us, and we do more. Now, we don't have the 4-module system like Touch for Health, but we do test. We teach people how to do all the 42 muscles of Touch for Health that you learn in the three of the 4 levels. We do those 42 and we add 10 more. Ooh. And we divide our system into a primary tuning sequence and a secondary tuning sequence. So in Touch for Health, there's a level 1 balance, a level 2 balance, a level 3 balance. And then there's all the extra things like working with foods and supplements and colors and all that other stuff. And the problem is I've taught Touch for Health for years, and so many people felt that if they didn't do all of it, they might as well not do any of it. And that was a real shame. And that's why we're really focusing on the real basics. And I thank Dr. Thie. He saw this vision, and I heard his son at a conference a year and a bit, saying Dr. Thie was asked how much time does it take to get your practice going with using Touch for Health? And he says, take the level 1 weekend, he says, and then you'll need a couple of years to learn how to market it.
Yeah.
And miracles happen with level 1, which is what I shared earlier on the call. So we grow on working with muscles, tuning up muscles. We've added emotional connection. We've added our own sort of like emotional freedom technique with a muscle tuner twist. So we do have a tapping technique that marries certain things together. And We just do things differently because we're not restricted by the requirements of the International Kinesiology College. When we teach Touch for Health, I stay very much in the Touch for Health model, and I only teach material that's covered in Touch for Health. But nobody was getting the reactives, and hardly anybody was doing gate mechanism resets. So we teach it differently. And another thing that is a bonus for us is that we offer everything online. And so you have an evergreen access to videos that are all alphabetized and organized in modules. So if you can't figure something out and you follow along in your book, you go look at the video and you see a demonstration as many times as you need to see it to learn it.
Oh, I absolutely love that. That is so cool. Okay, so you guys have the video so that people can follow along when they get confused, which I love that personally. I've been loving the online teaching that's been going on because of COVID for that exact reason, where I'm like, I need to double check back on that and just see how that went and whatnot. You mentioned the neurolymphatic, the rubbing points. Can you tell people about that? Do you guys touch down on that at all?
Oh, we do, because they're absolutely precious. They So a neurolymphatic reflex, first of all, a reflex is a spot that has an effect somewhere else. So a lot of people have heard of reflexology, where you can rub spots on the feet and all of a sudden your neck doesn't hurt. Your headache goes away, or you start breathing better. Well, that's because a reflex they're activating in your foot has an action over there somewhere. So it's the same thing with a neurolymphatic reflex that was researched by Dr. Frank Chapman. And he found that you could activate these zones, and he felt that it was how the nervous system was doing, talking to the lymphatic system. And so the lymphatic system is so key. They're your garbage collectors of your body. They run around past every cell of your body, and they collect any byproducts from the little cells doing their cell work. So carbon dioxide and all the other offshoots and off gases and whatever happens, the lymphatic system is going around collecting that and putting it into the circulatory system so it can get cleansed and renewed in different organs of the body. So you need your lymphatics to work. And so the term neurolymphatic is not like working with doing a lymphatic massage if you're trained in massage therapy, and it's very specialized training to do lymphatic massage. This is different. And it's literally something the width of your thumb, the tip of your thumb, or even your index finger, you go rubby-dubby on a spot. If you're on the reflex, it causes lymphatic fluid to flow much more easily through tissues of the body. And one of my favorite, when I don't ski very often, and I remember just being pooped out on the hill, and everybody else they're just go-go Energizer bunnies. So I would slam my poles, my ski poles, underneath my thighs as I was going up the lift. And I would unzip my jacket, and I would rub these reflexes that follow all along the lower edge of my rib cage, all the way from the very center, all the way along to the side seam of my shirt. And you go rub and rub, and you rub that whole zone for about 30 seconds or so, or if you really need it, up to 3 minutes. So by the time I got to the top of the chairlift, I would be ready to go again. My quads weren't tired. I was re-energized because we were moving lymphatics through the quadriceps muscles. So it made my activity so much more pleasurable, and it's not inexpensive to get on a ski hill these days. So I got my money's worth skiing because I knew that technique.
That's amazing.
And so did you need any more information about these neurolymphatic points?
Well, I just thought it was an excellent point to touch down on people so that they know, what is a neurolymphatic point, and, how rubbing on one, in what ways it can help them. So I guess one of my favorite topics is somatic memory. So somatic memory in the muscles, how does that interplay with muscle tuners? Do you guys work with somatic memory at all?
Well, I'm making funny sounds. I'm trying to figure out how to answer your question. So because we're trademarked in North America, and there are so many not allowed to do this, that, and the other thing. And one of the things is a lot of municipalities do not allow you. It's a regulated health activity to do anything in the scope of psychotherapy.
Okay.
And yet a lot of municipalities and governments or states or provinces allow you to help people with emotions as long as you're not telling people you're going to cure them of anything and that you're not treating somebody that's in dire distress. And so that leaves space for a lot of people to let go of some emotional baggage. You talk to any massage therapist, they know you rub some people, some massages, and people start laughing or they start crying for like no apparent reason because of that memory that is trapped in tissue. And there are people that know this. Neurolinguistic programming, they'll say, you go to a funeral and you're in a state of deep grief and everybody comes and pats your hand or pats you on the shoulder. And 10 years later, life is just rolling along and everything's great. And somebody suddenly pats your hand that way or pats you on the shoulder and you absolutely start bawling your head off.
Mm-hmm.
So this is activating a memory that's been trapped in tissue. And we don't work with that directly. However, we have our dynamic emotional alignment reset technique, which just lets people think about things as we perform a technique, and it helps to drain it right out of not only the tissue, but the electrical system, the nervous system, the acupuncture meridian system as well.
Oh, it's intense, isn't it?
You've got to work on some level of emotional diffusion if you want people to get better.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's one of the things that's so hard to talk about, when we enter into these conversations, it's because everything is connected. I mean, the mind, the body, the spirit, the muscles, the ligaments, everything is connected and you can't really have one without the other. And so if, let's say you jump on the table, emotion is bound to come up. Right. And it's hard to say, like, because I've had people ask me about that. And I'll say to them, I say, listen, I have snot sobbed all over my own table. Sometimes things just come up. I've had keening, wailing. I was balancing and it was that keening came out, and sometimes I think it's like that wasn't the intention when we went in to go do the balance. But these are the things that come up, I believe, when you start working with the muscles or you start working with helping to move energy about. What's your experience in that?
Well, back to my original chiropractor, and we had a conversation about emotions and heart holding on to emotions. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you really think it's just your heart that helps you manage emotions?"
Well, I don't.
And I knew without a shadow of a doubt, he had me connect to no. Emotions were getting stacked and stored and squirreled away and hibernating for a better day in different parts of my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I was like, are you going to
Yeah,
add?
I was wanting to add more, and it's just like his question was just so perfect. So I'm going to put that out to the audience. Do you really think the heart is the only place where you deal with emotions?
Yeah, that's an
So think about that, and hopefully you'll recognize as a human being that, yeah, gosh, no.
right.
You feel things in different parts, like your stomach getting butterflies if you have to present in front of a crowd, or little Johnny has to go to a new class and new teacher and his best friend isn't in the class with him anymore. He ends up with a tummy ache. And, people have, all kinds of stuff. Like people go, "Oh, I've got a pain in the butt." And I ask them, "Do you ever use that expression?" And they go, "Oh, yeah, all the time." I say, "He's a pain in the butt. That's pain in the butt." I says, "Well, you're programming your butt to be sore and carry all your pain for you."
like the best description ever. Oh, that's awesome.
It's not from me. This is other people's research and other people's learnings. Like there's some people that earn serious big money from figuring these things out. When you say that person's a pain in the butt, you end up with a pain in the butt, and you say pain in the neck or whatever it is. You're programming your somatic, your tissues to do that job for you. So be careful what you say.
Be careful what you say. I can't remember where it originated from, but like they said, words are spells, right? I mean, the things that we say, we're speaking them into existence. And I think that that's something that when we're younger, a lot of us, we don't know because we're like little parrots, we repeat the things that were said to us. We repeat the things that were said around us at the time. And then we step into our own adult years and we go into that just, automatic reflex of speaking or repeating or saying things. And then we don't even realize that it's on a cycle. And then, next thing you know, we've built this habit that's, actually holding us back, I think, from our life, and at least that's just been my own personal experience. I can't speak for anybody else, of course, but.
Well, thankfully, just before my kids popped out in the world, people were running around, psychologists are saying, oh, you just can't call your kids stupid. Don't say, oh, you're so stupid. And you can't say stuff like that because they're very impressionable. Mm-hmm. So the message is getting out there for what you say to other people, but equally important is what you say to yourself.
Yes. Well, and, it's interesting because what you say to your kids, and again, I'm speaking from personal experience, is I find myself even now, into my 30s, 5-6 years down into my bioenergetic journey here, I'll hear my brain speaking and it'll be arguing with itself, or it'll be, repeating a phrase that I'm like, wait a minute, where did that phrase even come from? What is that? And it's something that's, it's not flattering. It's not complimentary. It's actually negative, really has like a negative energy about it. And then I'm like, oh, that came from my childhood, and what I find so interesting about that is, these are patterns that I'm unlearning, but the things that we say to ourselves are often things that were said to us in childhood. And then, we got that behavioral patterning where we pass it down the line. And so then of course it makes me curious, well, gosh, if that's what I'm saying, what was said to my parent or what was said to my grandparent, and how is this, how is this turning up and how has this been affecting us throughout all the generations? Like, I find that so fascinating.
Well, my clinical practice, because you've come to see me, I do more than muscle tuning.
Yes.
And indeed, there are modalities out there like applied physiology. We track things back into genealogy. And I believe Hugo's neuroenergetics, that they go back into genealogy as well. Mm-hmm. There are a number of different systems that will go back and say, at what age did this get implanted? And, I tell people, do you want me to just take the yellow head of the dandelion off your lawn, or do you want me to go after the root?
Yeah.
Because if you don't get the root, problems keep coming back. And one of the other messages I really want to get out there is so many people are in the world saying, I don't want this pile of poop anymore. I just don't want this problem. I don't want a sore knee. I don't want a bad relationship. I don't want to be fighting with my kids. It's infinite what you don't want. It's absolutely infinite. I don't want to go to the moon either. I don't mind looking at it, but don't put me on a rocket. I don't want to go out there. It's absolutely infinite what you don't want. It is way more powerful in your life to make changes if you focus on what you do want. So rather than having a sore knee, it's about working on, I want to have the strength and flexibility and stamina to go hiking again. Or to say, I want to be able to get down on the floor and play with my grandkids, and more importantly, be able to get up again. Mm-hmm. So focus on what it is you want. What brings a light to your eyes? And I spoke to somebody the other day, and she says, I actually have never heard of a healer ask me before, what do I want?
Wow.
And I went, wow. Because in our background, in our training, Rayanne, that's very the basic is, what is it that you want? And because it's so basic, it often gets forgotten. And I'm glad that I remembered to bring it into this conversation.
I love that you remember to bring into that conversation. That is something I think that is so important. And again, yeah, every session that I do, it's the same thing. I always say to people, I said, we're balancing you towards a goal. What is it that you want? And I'll ask them to feel that. And it's really fascinating to me how people can become so out of touch with how it feels to feel good. Because we discussed, there's a focus on the things that we don't want. And then, trying to imagine how it would feel to have the things that you do want. I find that there's a lot of hiccups in that area. And then, so when we bring affirmations online in a balance, and I'll bring something up for somebody, and I'll look at them and I'll be like, well, how does that register with you? Like, what does that make you feel to say that? And then the smile lights up their face and they're like, oh no, actually that's exactly what I want. Or, and it's so beautiful to watch that light turn on in someone's eye, but it's interesting that it takes a while for it to take root because people forget about that.
The importance of that can't be overstated. There are times where we've spent easily 30 minutes trying to lasso what the heck the person wants.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just not used to thinking about what do I want. And it's like, literally, tell me what you want. And be careful what you ask for. I had a woman say she wanted more energy, and this is my early days. I went, okay, so we balanced. And it was back when the word abundant was everywhere. I have abundant energy. I have abundant energy. So she kept thinking, I have abundant energy as we were balancing her. She came back 3 days later and she said, shut it off. I can't sleep.
Oh, that's so funny.
Be careful what you ask for. So have a good environmental context. So it's like, I have abundant energy to spend time with my family and friends, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, if that happens to be in the middle of the night, that's when it is. But, usually it's in the middle of the day. So then you have the energy to fall asleep, that you're not over-energized like a little Energizer bunny. Be careful and really be thoughtful. And it's the same. Another thing I'll say is that if you decided, name me any city anywhere outside of the Lower Mainland, Rayanne, name me any city.
Any city outside the Lower Mainland. Let's go with Calgary, Alberta.
Okay, so you're going to go to Calgary, Alberta. And have you ever driven the road before?
Like a million times, literally.
Okay, name me somewhere you've never been before.
Oh, someone I've never been before. Oh, Montreal.
Okay, great. So in Canada, there's basically one big highway that goes across Canada. But if you were not familiar with that concept and you say, I want to get to Montreal, and you go, okay, I've got the energy, the will, the drive, everything I need, all the resources, got the car, got the gas money, and insurance is paid, and off I go. I got the time. You get in your car and you're in the middle of the city. And then there's another city you have to get through and another city you have to get through to make sure you're on the right road to get to Montreal. You need to look at your map. So a person, once they set a goal that's really important to them, they need to keep focusing and saying, am I on track to getting to my goal? Am I getting to Montreal? Or did I somehow end up on a different highway and now I'm going to end up in Tuktoyaktuk? For those of you who don't know, that's Northwest Territories. It's really far north and it's like way up there. Start to meet the Russians kind of cold.
Oh, I love that you brought that up. And actually it was really interesting. I had a thought just here the other night. I was falling asleep and I've always believed in choice. I believe that, and this is an argument I've had, especially for people who become addicted to drugs. And I will say, everybody here knows my own past history and my father's history. And, my dad died a drug addict. And when I was 17, 18, I did a fair amount of drugs to cope with my own mental illness that I had going on. And people are always so shocked when they say, well, how did you get off drugs? And I said, well, I made a choice. And what came to me the other night when I was falling asleep, and this falls into what we were just discussing about, you have to constantly keep checking in. It is a choice. It requires a choice. You have to make the decision that, yes, this is what I want. But the thing about making a choice is that's not where it ends. It doesn't end. Like you don't just arrive, because you made that choice. Making the choice is what puts you on that path. And then once you're on that path, like you said, you have to keep stopping and checking in, and you have to do the work to get there. And I think that is so important when we're trying to, better our lives, and, when we're trying to strengthen ourselves and improve whatever it is about ourselves that we want to improve upon. I think it's important to say, like, checking in with yourself, checking in with those muscles, checking in with those emotions, and writing those things down, staying true to that course. Once you've made the decision, it's easy to stick with the power because you've made a decision. But if you get wishy-washy and you aren't able to voice out loud exactly what it is that you want, or if you're not able to recognize that feeling when it comes up, I think that's when it's easy to get lost in the weeds.
Well, it is. I mean, how many people make a weight loss goal, right? And I hate weight loss. It should be a weight reduction, or, when people say, oh, I've lost 5 pounds, you're, again, talking to your body. Like if you lost your cell phone or your wallet, your driver's license, your brain would go crazy keeping you seeking. It's under the covers. Is it, in the couch, in the corner of the couch? Maybe I left it in the car and it got under the seat. You'd be seeking it all the time. So people who say they want to lose weight, don't say I've lost weight. Say I've gotten rid of it. Like literally just change your language and say I've just gotten rid of it. And then let's say you're on the path. Say, okay, my goal is to reach 100 and X pounds, right? So you have to check in. Are you making good decisions to get there, as you were saying? Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, I've been in a point where I go, well, do I want this piece of cheesecake and the pleasure I'll have eating it? Or would I rather stand on the scale tomorrow and have the pleasure to see that I've gone down another couple 100 grams?
Cheesecake all the way, man.
Yeah, well, especially if there's anything involved with chocolate drizzle and fruit or something.
Sorry.
Well, I treat yourself whenever, but the people who continually make the decision about not saying my goal is to get rid of weight. Mm-hmm. So, okay, yeah, I'd rather eat the cheesecake and feel bummed when I got on the scale tomorrow, then you're really not focusing on your goal.
That's right.
And definitely treats are part of any process. And treats can be in the form of food or other types of treats that if your goal is to get rid of some weight, then adding calories is not really helpful.
Well, I love that.
It's interesting that no matter what you're aiming for, just say, oh, I can be distracted. Would I rather go and cruise on Facebook right now or make those calls? Or whatever it is that you want to achieve, you have to check in and say, what habits will get me there little bit by little bit, day by day. Doesn't seem like you're getting anywhere. But when you look back in a year, you go, wow, look at what I did in this year. Mm-hmm. Because you maintain the habits and the discipline because you had a goal in mind.
Well, and I think it's also important to mention here, or I think it's worthwhile to mention that in context of weight, there has been studies done on this. So, I mean, don't quote me, but, Google this. There was studies done, for people that they would reach their goal weight, and then all of a sudden something would happen, a trigger would take place. And all of a sudden, without any warning, they would fall back into those old habits. And I think that this is what we were talking about, where you mentioned about the dandelion versus the root, and I think that that's 100% important too, is to look at the cause and the root and the symptoms of what it is that you are trying to work towards, and understand that these things are gonna come up out of nowhere when you're working towards a goal, or when you do make a choice. There's always going to be detours, and that is the hardest part. Is understanding, for me at least, it's been that you can go off route, you can take a detour, you can have a bit of a setback, but those setbacks are really setups, because they're setups for you to go even deeper into your goal and the root and the reason why you're doing it, and it helps you to clear out other things that may or may not have been holding you back in that area of your life, or may have been holding you back in other areas of your life. And I think that that's important to touch down on is, when it does come to goals, it's not, like you said before, it's not linear. It's a spiral effect, right?
It can be a spiral, it can be some crazy line. The thing is keep progressing in the direction, eventually you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you just said. Setback can be viewed as a set up to launch you. It's the time to make a new decision and to decide to keep going in the direction you want or adjust. Because sometimes you do need to adjust once you get understanding a little bit about, oh, maybe I don't want to end up in Montreal. Maybe I want to end up in Dorval, which is just
Mm-hmm.
next door. You can make those adjustments as you go along once you get clearer.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said when we were talking about day to day and keeping on track. I think that there's a big catchphrase out there, it has a lot to do with like live in the moment, live in the moment. And, I think that you can hear phrases and hear sayings like a million times before they actually finally register sometimes. And I know for me, like what you were saying, that, day to day, when you make those choices, like when you make that comparison with the cheesecake, when you're standing there and it's like, do I want this piece of cheesecake right now? Or do I want that, do I want to, maybe suffer the consequences of my own emotions tomorrow, because I understand that. And I think that that's important every day. And I believe that that's meaning behind the saying personally is every day, every now in this present moment, we have the opportunity to not only choose again, but to, to make the decision that's going to bring us that happiness tomorrow. And I know for myself, and for other people that I've spoken with that have experienced trauma or setbacks or, heartbreak, that when we get into this thing that I refer to as survival mode, that it can be really hard to keep your eye on the goal in front of you, because you're just thinking about moment to moment. How do I get by this very moment? And I want to ease this. And I think it's important to remember that, maybe even if you had to write it down, those goals, and sit down like what we were talking about with that goal intention, and write it down and keep it on a wall somewhere, and remember what it is and how you think it would feel to achieve that goal. And so that every time that you do encounter this setback where you fall back into survival mode, or you become so overwhelmed by everything coming at you in a single day, that it's easy to forget about what it is that you really want, that core desired feeling, to quote Danielle Laporte. And to be able to sit back and go, oh, check in with yourself and go, oh, right, this goal that I wanted, this feeling that I wanted, maybe it's an athletic endeavor, maybe it's a goal that has to do with your health, maybe it's a goal that has to do with financial or work or home relation. I want this thing for myself in 20 years. If I stop in this moment and I try to remember, this is how that would feel. And then you look at what you're doing in that very moment and you ask yourself, is what I'm doing in this very moment helping me to achieve that? Or is my body screaming at me, or is my brain screaming at me that I need to go do something else? And then sit back and ask yourself, okay, not what is most important, but maybe why that this is coming up for you, as a detour. I don't know. I went off on a tangent and maybe, sorry. Did any of that register? Or should I roll back the tape and clip that out?
I just think it's important to have conversations about these topics. If people, can hang in there and not roll their eyes, there was a lot of value in your sharing your experience with that.
Well, thank you. I mean, heck, there's been a lot of value in you sharing everything that you shared with us here today. And I just, I know that you have to go soon, and I keep dragging this conversation onwards just because I love talking with you, Denise. So I'm holding you hostage. It's one of my, it's one of the things I'm trying to work on, is stop holding people hostage. Um, so thank you. Is there anything else that you could share with us here today? So maybe where people can find you, how they can check you out, where they can take the course if they're interested in it. What can they do to connect with you?
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation to put my little advertisement in here. So anybody wants to reach with me directly, they can reach me at Denise, Denise, at Muscle Tuners. That's MuscleTuners.fit. It's a new extension. It's like FIT for fitness. And our website is muscletuners.fit. And just a few inches below the top of the page, there's a green banner. It says explore our programs or something like that. Click there if you want to know more about our programs. We have programs for professionals. We have programs for everybody. And if facilitating wellness, self-care for other people, doing it for yourself, being a presenter, we got a little bit of it all, because our real mission is to help the world reduce pain. And I've got a better way of saying it. Really, we're looking for people to be more productive in their lives. And we're looking to find those people so that they can help as many people as they can just have more meaningful lives and more productive, and to do it faster. And just know, if you join our programs, we support people like nobody else I know in this space, Rayanne. And I know there are a number of people that have moved their programs online. And I don't know that many who offer the kind of support that we do, where you get weekly or bi-monthly check-ins. We hold your hand, we answer your questions. We want to make sure you're doing things well, you're doing them right so that you get results. So, I should say two things. Heather is running a 4-day challenge where you do these different techniques, and she's halfway through a paid portion of the program right now. She'll be relaunching it, but I don't know when this message is going to get out to the world. But do go check out www.winthepaingame.com. And even if you don't have pain, this is equally good for vitality. And I run Introduction to Muscle Tuners mini online workshop events twice a month, every month, second Tuesday and the fourth Thursday of the month. And you find those by going to our muscletuners.fit page and look at the top of the banner, and there'll be a little link called events. And you click on that link and it'll bring you through to sign up. And it is not salesy at all. I give so much material away to people they can start using in their lives. And we do like that it's a professional person for those intro to muscle tuning. Just because, those are the types of people that are probably going to bring these types of techniques into their business with them. But if you find yourself there, I certainly won't shoo you out of the meeting room. So we do invite everybody to be strong, be confident, and be tuned, and get in touch with us.
Oh, so exciting. I'm so excited for everybody here. Guys, head on over to that. Honestly, like even me, I know we've already discussed this, but I'm going to have to do a re-up on mine, and I'm going to come take the Muscle Tuners course at some point here in 2021, just because we all need to strengthen our skill set no matter where we're at. And I love the conversations that you and I have in private, Denise. And I know that with a lot of the other courses, I'm going to back you up, and I'm going to say, even when I take courses from my teachers, there is like little to no check-in after I've taken a course. And I'm not saying that to put people down. I know it's because we're serving such a large community, but I really hope that people take your lead and start checking in and doing that, because it's so helpful when we have someone to kind of lean into and talk to, and when we have our mentors, which is why we have this podcast. It's life's a hell of a lot more fun when we have mentors.
We're building a community, and they help each other. We help them. It's important to us because we're building a brand.
Yeah.
The quality of the brand is out there. And we're hoping to be, let's visualize, let's make it a household word, in 10 years.
Yeah.
Everybody will know what muscle tuning is about.
Absolutely. And I do have one more question for those that are listening. I mean, because I have a bunch of other of our guests are going to come on that as well, like Jackie Mooney and Hugo Tobar and Steve Hansen. They're all going to come on. Is or does or will Muscle Tuners be accepted as a prerequisite for taking the brain integration courses. Are you guys working towards that, or is it already there?
I haven't had discussions with Jackie about that.
Okay, cool.
That would be, one of those conversations. I got to catch up with that butterfly.
Awesome. All right, love. Well, thank you so much again for joining us here. And everybody, you guys can check out the show notes if you missed any of that information, and we will talk to you all next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the platform, Rayanne. Just carry on and be well.
You as well, Denise. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I am my own colony, with my best foot in front of me. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. 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 I am my own colony, my best foot in front of me. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not where I'm supposed to be.
Disclaimer. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the opinions or viewpoints of the host, producer, other guests, or sponsors. I, Rayanne K. Irving, am not, nor have I ever been, a doctor or therapist, and none of what I say is intended for professional or medical advice.